I'm really thrilled to have Bimbola Kolawole, the VP for Africa at Rystad Energy. Thank you so much for your time and thank you for being here.
Thank you for having me. Thank you.
Looking at how do you see Rystad Energy see Africa's contributions towards the global energy mix evolving over the next decade?
Um, our view at Rystad Energy, I mean, I would look at this in the form of liquid and gas supply from the African continent. So on the liquid side, Africa in the year 2000s and 2010s, Africa contributed around 10% of the global energy supply. And this is on the liquid side. And we have seen, with the recent departure of legacy producers from Africa and the rise in other regions, for example, Latin America and so on and so forth, that 10% has now sort of gone down to 6% in terms of Africa's contribution on global supply of liquids. On the side of the gas supply, things have remained more or less the same, with Africa's contribution being roughly 5%. And yeah, it hasn't really changed, but that can, of course, change, if there's more improvement in the gas to power projects across wide in all of the most of the African nations, if not all, and of course improvements in gas infrastructure, because infrastructure is the main challenge, so to speak. So yes, that's it.
In the face of growing pressure to decarbonize, what strategies would you recommend for oil and gas producers in Africa to stay competitive in the global market while advancing sustainability efforts and balancing security needs?
So in terms of decarbonization, I would recommend that oil and gas companies, on their upstream operations should look to probably focus or try to work on reducing, I'll say, diesel or petrol, fired engines, for example, that needs to be sort of dealt with and can be probably not replaced, but encouraged to utilize renewable sources. By renewable sources, safe to say, of course, in other nations, maybe Europe is a good example. Electric vehicles is quite popular, and of course that sort of reduces, um, you know, day in day out emissions, for example. But this is within the operational level, so to speak. So on operational level, the EMP companies can sort of combat that and try to work on reducing within their operations, try to reduce emissions in that regard. In terms of staying competitive, I'll say fiscal incentives should definitely be encouraged, and also security, and also supports from the regulatory bodies, for example. So these are the strategies that I feel would help and should be set in place. But of course, it all has to do with starting from somewhere and addressing inherent challenges.
What role do you envision for new technologies like carbon capture, storage, and green hydrogen in shaping Africa's energy sector?
Energies such as solar, wind, hydro, and much more. I think um, they are they are extremely important in the African energy mix and Africa's position in the global energy mix. And it's I mean, there's a lot of conversation about, is Africa green or is it not, when you want to compare that in the context, in the global context, for sure. There isn't much emission when you want to compare with industrialized nations. There isn't much that is actually going, there isn't much from the African contributions perspective. But green hydrogen, for example, definitely would help as part of, a contributor to energy security, so to speak, for the continent. In terms of carbon capture, there isn't much of that happening. Of course, again, that also boils down to the fact that there isn't much that Africa emits what 2.5 to 3% of emission globally when you want to compare to the rest of the world, and South Africa is responsible for half of that. So there is a lot that needs to be looked into. But as Africa industrializes, then we, of course, we're not going to wait until it industrializes before we start putting in, utilizing these new technologies and putting, strategies in place to ensure that we produce in a sustainable manner and also, utilize what is abundant to us, which is the sunlight, we just need to invest and do more and grow more of and maybe I'll put it this way, manufacture, more capacity development so that we can do more manufacturing of some of this, panels, solar panels, and have solar farms. They do exist already, but it's just a case of having more. And there's a lot of countries in the continent. There's a lot of spaces that can be used. The Namibian desert is quite large. Of course, there's stats going on already. Hydrogen is very big in Namibia. And if you go to countries like Morocco, Kenya, they're quite big in renewable sources. I think Senegal is also picking up. Nigeria is very big on energy transition strategy and plans for the future as well. Bear in mind, Nigeria is very much a gas country as compared to oil, which is what most people have always known it to be.
What has your company achieved by participating in AEW this year?
Rystad Energy, we are a global advisory firm and business intelligence for sure. And we've been around for 20 years. And out of our 20 years, we've had a very beautiful relationship with the Africa Energy Chamber, owners of the Africa Energy Week conference for 4 years. So we're very proud of that. And so far, there's a lot that have been achieved over the years. But for this year, it's been great so far. Yesterday, we had our office opening lunch. So we are opening in Cape Town, and it will be the first office of its kind in the African continent. And I'm extremely proud of that, having started this journey for Rystad Energy. So it brings back the years of all the challenges and all of that. However, it's very important to note the support that we've also had from the Africa Energy Week team and Africa Energy Chamber as a whole. And for example, yesterday we participated in a number of workshops, and also today we are definitely participating in a couple of panel sessions. Throughout the week, we are busy covering the upstream space, the renewables and power space, critical minerals. Yes, it's been great, and most importantly, together with the Africa Energy Chamber, we produce the State of Africa Energy Outlook. So we do that on an annual basis where we look at what's happening currently in the continent within the entire energy space. So think about oil, gas, renewables, of course, other sources of energy, hydrogen, carbon capture, storage aspects, geothermal production, and wind. And yeah, of course, I mentioned that already, wind and solar, which is renewables. So all of this is all baked into the report. We look at what's happened the previous year, we look at what's happened in the current year, and we're able to project what's happening the next year. And of course, also going forward, almost on a five-year timeline. So I encourage everyone during the conference, I encourage everyone to pick up a copy. And, after the conference, you go on the Africa Energy Chamber website and go on the Insight link. There you can actually download a copy of that report. So that and many is what we have achieved this year. And we plan to continue to have the relationship that we have with the Africa Energy Week, and of course the parent company, which is the Africa Energy Chamber. And most importantly, Rystad Energy is extremely proud to be part of this conference, and also very importantly to be finally in the African continent. Thank you.
Thank you so much for your time, and I hope you have a productive week.
Thank you. I will do. Thank you.